Welcome to this episode of Building Bridges of Understanding. I'm Dan Clark, your host on behalf of Muscatine's sister cities. I have two guests with me today who will teach us or tell us about our German sister city, Ludwigslust, if I said that correctly. They are Ingrid Rowe, who was born in Germany and came to America as a young mother. And Kristine, may I say Tina?
Either.
Kristine,
I prefer Kristine.
Kristine Conlon, who taught German at Muscatine High School
For many years.
for a career, and has traveled to Germany maybe more times than she can count.
I'd have to make a list.
I want to start with reading some of your words because this is just a quick way to get into it. Ludwigslust is one of Muscatine's newest sister cities, and a short time ago in the Muscatine Journal there was an article by these two women that begins this way. One of the most charming towns in Germany also happens to be Muscatine's sister city, Ludwigslust. Ludwig's Delight. Founded in 1724 by the Duke of Mecklenburg, it's a planned community with a broad main boulevard lined with trees and symmetrical brick houses leading up to his elegant country palace. Muscatine's formal relationship with the town started in 2004. Several delegations of Germans have visited here, and several delegations of Iowans have enjoyed the hospitality of the, do we say Ludwigluster?
Ludwigsluster.
Ludwigslust.
There you go.
Very good.
And their article closes, if you like your relationships up close and personal, sister cities is the way to go. And Ludwigslust would be a perfect place to start. So let's start there and jump in. We are trying more pictures today than I've ever done before on this show, so we don't need to stay with any of them long. These are pictures mostly taken by Kristine.
What year was that when you and I went together?
Well, you went on the first one, but I didn't go on the first delegation.
I didn't either.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. So there was
Who started this thing then?
Oh, Ingrid did.
But you didn't go on the first delegation.
I don't know what happened. I was still working, so I'm not sure that I could get away or whatever.
Yeah, she was born in East Germany, and she wanted, well...
No, I was born in the part that is now Poland, Silesia. And in early 1945, we had to escape from there and ended up in Mecklenburg.
And that was a Soviet zone?
That
It
was
was a Soviet zone at that time, yes. Excuse me. And I grew up there until 1957, and at that time we escaped to West Germany. So I have a long history. When I moved to Muscatine in 2002 and learned about the large German history that Muscatine has, I wondered why we didn't have a German sister city. And John told me, well, if you want one, go get one. And I did.
John DeBeat was our president then.
Yes.
And from the earliest days of sister cities, Marlon Scheepers was our first president. And in 1986, even then, Marlon was saying, we've got to have a German sister city because we have all the settlers, maybe a majority of our settlers are from Germany.
especially from Mecklenburg. I mean, Mecklenburg, they shipped whole villages over to Iowa.
The headline on this piece was, The Little Versailles of Mecklenburg. What is Mecklenburg?
Mecklenburg today is a state of
We have a map, I believe.
the Federal Republic of Germany, and it was a state in East Germany too.
Yes, it was Mecklenburg.
And it's in the far north, right south of Schleswig-Holstein. It borders on the Baltic Sea.
Baltic Sea. And it's about an hour and a half from Berlin and Hamburg, very close to both of those cities.
So north,
And the kind of
northeast.
farming and everything they did in Mecklenburg made it very comfortable for the people to come over to Iowa.
And is it the Germans in this part or all over Iowa? This
Or
is
all over Iowa,
Well,
pretty much.
Yeah, Schleswig-Holstein, that whole area, there are a lot of German descendants in this area.
There are two towns in Iowa, one named Schleswig and one named
Yes.
Holstein. So it's, yeah,
And you said, say it in German, I love it.
Schleswig-Holstein.
Schleswig-Holstein.
Stein.
And Mecklenburg?
Mecklenburg.
Burg.
My great-grandmother was born in Mecklenburg, and my other grandmother, her grandparents came from Schleswig-Holstein. And that's very local.
I watch you on Facebook tracing genealogy. Your people came from everywhere,
Yeah, but this part of Iowa
the German ones.
came from these northern states that were farmers, raised cows, loved pork, you know. It was very comfortable.
My wife had ancestors who sailed from Hamburg, and I think that was pretty typical, wasn't it?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was, yeah.
That was the big port.
Excuse me.
Well, let's say a little more about this sister city and move on into our pictures here. There's that article I was talking about. I sit with the two authors and our map.
Yeah, it's called the Little Versailles because of the palace in the city that was built by Ludwig, the Duke.
We're going to get into that palace. I remember this piece of wood before it went to Germany. What was the story?
Muscatine, Sister City.
I don't remember.
Ludwig's
Somebody
Lust.
here made that, as I recall.
That must have been the first delegation, which
I
we
think
weren't
so.
on.
I quite frankly have never seen it. They
I don't
must have
remember
taken
it.
it for the first trip.
I think you took the picture.
I took the picture, but I don't remember any of the background on it.
Okay.
The first delegation went just to Ludwig's Lust and to our sister city in Poland, and to our sister city in Ukraine.
Lomsha and Drohobych.
So it was a much more complicated trip.
Here I noted, I pulled out the list of other sister cities. Some of our sister cities have many others around the world, but evidently Ludwigslust, we're pretty special to them, it appears.
Well, the Russian one is really interesting because I was there when their delegation was there, and they're Tatars.
Oh.
And the guy who had arranged the sister city relationship had been a Russian soldier stationed there back in the Soviet days, and he had learned to speak German while he was stationed there. And I was invited to go visit the city with them, and I was going to, but my father got ill and I had to cancel out. But I saw the slides of the Russian sister city when the Russian delegation was there.
You know, and just a little, when the first delegation went to Ludwigslust, an older man who had been stationed here actually was a prisoner of war right outside in
I remember that.
Yeah, Fairport, right?
Fairport,
That's
yes.
right, up at by the fishery.
And he actually came to meet the delegation.
That's exciting.
Isn't that something?
It's, yeah, the most famous book from that area is, what's it, Jürgen, what's his name?
I told you I don't remember names.
That's true. Anyway, he came over and he settled very close to Muscatine, and he wrote a wonderful, funny book about being a German pioneer in Iowa. And it was a bestseller back in Mecklenburg. And you can go visit his schoolhouse, and you can go, there's a wonderful restaurant right there. And so this area is famous in Mecklenburg.
The Mississippi
because,
River, is the name Muscatine known?
Yes, he visits
Yes.
Muscatine in the book.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, we should. I wonder where that book is. We should have brought a copy of the book.
I'm sure I have one at home.
And this is this I pulled from the internet. This is the
The
coat of
what?
arms, I understand, for the
Pretty
city.
scary looking.
Well, there's the bull.
The city is from the 1700s, is that right?
Oh, it's
It
older
is
than
from
that.
1724.
That's when he built the castle.
I think our pictures move into the yes,
Here's the
matter of
Schloss.
the matter of this castle, Schloss.
Was
What
the
is
Schloss
Palace.
palace
which was built as a hunting lodge for his pleasure.
for this
Ludwig's
this
pleasure.
king? And well, let's look at the pictures, and you can tell us about visiting there.
There's, that must be in Schwerin. Is that
Oh,
the
oh,
palace
that's
in
the
Schwerin?
wrong one.
That looks like Schwerin.
Yeah.
Well, see, I chose
That's the
these
moat around the
pictures.
palace in Schwerin, which was the Duke's regular residence. And in communist days, the communists just tore everything out of inside the castle and made it into a bureaucratic offices.
Was that the same Duke?
This was the same Duke, but all the Dukes. This was where the Dukes lived.
No, that was after the World War that it was made into government
The
offices.
communists.
Yeah.
And it's
Got over.
now still the government building.
So
That's
which one is
also-
Yeah,
this?
that's in Schwerin.
That's also in Schwerin.
Well, I see. I sort of mixed them up.
That's okay.
If you are going to Ludwigslust, you're going to go to Schwerin. This is also the gardens at the palace in Schwerin.
Beautiful gardens. Oh, and that was the restaurant.
This is the restaurant in the
Yes.
palace in Ludwigslust. As it was a hunting lodge, so you go in there.
I
and
guess so.
have,
Look
you know,
at those
venison and
antlers.
whatever. Now this is at what's it called? Where the watch, where the guard had their That's the yellow building, is where the guard stayed. And they have a restaurant in that now, and this is the garden of the restaurant for the watch. And you can see the palace in the background then.
Oh, no.
And that's Regina, with whom I've stayed several times. And the other lady, I have no idea who that is.
I don't either.
I saw Regina's name and face come up several times in your pictures.
Oh, they're wonderful. They've stayed at our house a couple of times, and I've stayed at their house several times.
I think that was our farewell dinner outside the palace.
Yeah, that's the watch again. And that's Marcy and Larry Clausen from Muscatine. And the local,
Go ahead.
I don't remember, he was librarian? What was the guy who organized the children playing?
I don't remember what he did. He was a teacher of some sort. I think he was a librarian, but also a musician.
So
And he also gave us the tour of the palace.
So these hats are kind of historic attire.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are local children.
That is the church.
That's the Catholic church in the park, and I think the caption on that is saying it's on a little island because there are no Catholics in the north, so they wanted to make sure they were isolated in the park. But we went to a concert that night in that church too.
We have a concert picture, I believe.
And they were outstanding.
It was a wonderful concert.
In that church.
And actually, I think we started a tradition of clapping because normally you don't clap in church in Germany anyway. And but then the locals joined in when we started
because the
it.
Americans
Because
clapped.
we did.
This is still in the park. This is just walking through the park, and the park is wonderful. Just gorgeous. Okay.
I think that was an excursion to, it was not Schwerin. Where else did we go?
We went up to the Baltic Sea for the
one day, didn't we? Yeah.
And we were in a couple of cities up by the Baltic Sea, and this is, again, typical North German architecture. It's got the stair-step kind of roof line and the brick. You see the brick everywhere. It's very different architecture than Americans tend to go to South Germany and, cuckoo clock
more
houses.
Dutch.
In the north,
maybe.
it's much more like Holland, yeah. This
And
is
that
on
Same
the
excursion, maybe.
same excursion, yeah.
One of the nice things is you have fast food stands all along the waterfront.
Oh, wonderful.
And absolutely fresh fish.
Okay, this is a really interesting one because when the communists were in charge, the rents were extremely low and you didn't have to pay utilities or anything. And the way they got away with that was they did no maintenance for 50 years. So you would see these buildings that had gotten water inside the walls and whatever, and they were literally rotting from the inside out. The banister might just be splinters in your hand, so you couldn't use the banister. But
And
after
they proclaimed affordable housing for everyone.
well, of course. After the fall of the wall, the West German government put aside a huge amount of money for sanieren,
Yeah.
cleaning the buildings and whatever. So you see these two buildings next to each other. The one on the right has been saniert, it's been cleaned and restored and everything. And the one on the left, they haven't done anything to. So when you went to East Germany right after the fall of the wall, every building in the country looked like the one on the left.
And I think quite often some of the ones that have not been restored is because they can't find the original owners because many of them had left, for West Germany, America, or whatever. So I think that is still going on, trying to find
That could
the
be.
It was
original.
a chaotic process, wasn't it?
Here's one of the boats on the river or on the sea with the fresh
Fresh food.
herring sandwiches. I love herring sandwiches. Smoked eel. Different kind of food than we're used to. That's still the same town, I think, walking through up by the sea. There's Marcy again. And there's Peter. That's Regina's husband, who, again, they've been to Muscatine a couple of times, and I've stayed with them. And I don't know the other
In
lady
fact,
at
they
all.
left for the trip. They're already over there again. So you'll meet them.
Oh,
on
Marcy and
on the-
Larry are over
They
there.
already have left.
Okay,
yes.
there's the fireman, the Muscatine fireman who went with us. And he was a joy. I don't
Oh,
remember
wow.
his name either.
Hartman.
Mike?
Yeah.
Mike
Hartman?
Hartman, yeah.
The German fireman just thought he was wonderful. He was a huge success on this trip. Okay, that's Nice brick building.
And you described that as a place, I think, that had been occupied by Soviet troops, maybe?
Oh yes, yeah. There are a lot of Soviet soldiers stationed in Ludwigslust, and most of them kept to themselves. They were not encouraged to talk to the Germans. But this one young man who organized the sister city relationship really loved Germany and really got into the local society. Well, there's Larry.
That's Larry.
Yeah, is that the post office? I think that's the
I believe
post
I
office.
believe that
old
said post office.
Yeah.
Again, very typical North German architecture.
And City Hall is right across from that.
Okay, this is the main street. You would go down this street to the palace, and all the buildings on one side of the street are a mirror image of the buildings on the other side of the street. And it's a very wide street because that was Ludwig's main entrance to his palace. And they've got Ludwigslust did not suffer as much as a lot of German cities because they had a big Lutheran church there. And the Lutherans in the United States helped, not the church, the hospital. They had a big Lutheran hospital. So the Lutherans in the United States helped support this hospital and supplied it with equipment and so forth that no other hospital like in East Germany had.
And did the believers worship or carry on at some level?
Very much so.
Yes.
Peter and Regina met at a church dance, and the church was kind of a sanctuary, literally, where people before the fall of the wall went and organized demonstrations and so forth. Peter and Regina both participated in the demonstrations.
In the weeks and months before
before the fall of the wall.
And people did go to church even when I was a child. You know, people still went to church. It was not that you could not attend church at all.
I was actually involved in hosting visitors from what was then DDR, East Germany, church leaders who visited Iowa during the year or so before the wall fell. And what an exciting time. The stories they told about what had been secret gatherings that didn't need to be secret anymore, and party members professing that they were believers and so on.
Well, the big Lutheran church in Germany was the center of organizing demonstrations in the area.
And in fact, Ludwigslust still has very close contact with, I think, a minister or a priest in Des Moines.
Okay.
I can't think of his name right now, but they're still very much in contact.
I think I remember that, yeah.
This, I'm sorry we can't read the words, but this is another chapter. This is a story that...
Is that the concentration
yeah,
camp area?
it's a plaque commemorating
Yeah,
that.
I have a little bit about that here. It was established by the SS in 1945.
The Nazi.
By the Nazis. At the end of World War II, as the line of contact between Soviet and other Allied forces formed, Ludwigslust was captured by British troops initially, then handed over to the American troops. After several months, the U.S. troops departed and allowed Soviet troops to enter according to the Yalta Agreement, designating the occupation of Mecklenburg to be administered by the Soviets. So they will take you to the concentration camp. There's just a memorial there. But in this park between the palace and the Lutheran church, they have several memorials, don't they? Honoring.
I really don't remember that. I can't remember that.
It's not ignored by the community. The community does have in the center of the town.
Is it memorialized more now than it was during Soviet times?
Oh, I think that has been there for a long time.
The Soviets were very, very thorough in getting rid of the Nazis. I think if the Nazis had had a concentration camp there, the Soviets would have gone out of their way to make sure that that had been pointed out.
I thought this had been a Nazi camp.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying. The plaques and so forth are memorializing the people who were in the camp, not the Nazis who made the camp.
Right.
Okay. There's the church.
Church again.
In Ludwigslust?
Yes, the church is at one end of this big park. They're separate from the park we saw earlier, and the palace is at the other end.
I see.
So when you come out of the palace, you look straight down
On
over
that broad street.
There's a waterfall there, kind of, and then you see the church at the other end. So Ludwig could just go straight from his house into the church. Okay. There's some flowers.
This was, I think it said old people's home, maybe?
Oh, this is where we had ice cream. Yeah, that was the old people's home.
Yes.
We had had a tour of
I can't remember the town either.
the school with the special education.
That's right, yes. Yes.
And it was very interesting what they're doing with special education in Germany right now. And then afterwards, we all went for ice cream in the little cafe behind the old folks' home.
And I think one thing to point out too when we go on these trips is we request to see certain things depending on what career
people who are
Who the
participating,
travelers
yeah.
are.
Right. And I had asked for that because I had worked here with handicapped people. And so that's one of the reasons we toured.
That was fascinating.
that
That was really
workshop.
interesting.
It was very interesting, yes. And the hospitals, we had a doctor along and teachers, so we kind of tried to arrange the trips.
That's what we went to the hospital because we had the
Exactly.
doctor along.
Right.
In the hospital, they had a convent for Lutheran nuns, and I didn't know the Lutherans had nuns. But we went.
Did they call them nuns?
Schwestern, I think, sisters.
Sisters.
Anyway, this is the train station, and that's the local train, right? That just stops at every town on the way. But German trains are incredibly modern and clean and on time.
So if Muscatine residents are touring in Europe, it wouldn't be hard, and have your rail pass or something, it wouldn't be hard to.
Oh, that's
at
what
all.
Debbie and Steve are doing,
Right.
and Larry and Marcy. I
Larry and
think they're
Marcy
also.
mhm.
Yeah, it's
No, in
super
fact, that's a
easy to go by
very-
train.
Or you can just have a German rail pass if you only want
This is a little fuzzy, but I love the story that goes with this photo.
Okay. This is the Reeperbahn in Hamburg, and anybody who knows anything about the Beatles
I
knows.
cringed at Reeperbahn. You better explain that.
That's just the name of the street.
That's an area.
A
Yeah.
raper here is something else.
It's spelled R-E-E-P-E-R.
Thank you.
And it is the red light district of Hamburg.
Oh, is it?
Yes, and that's where the Beatles learned all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
In the
and
red
they
light
became the
district of
Beatles there.
Ludwigslust.
They had been good when they were in
No,
England.
that's in Hamburg.
Oh, that's
Oh,
Hamburg.
this is Hamburg.
Okay.
Yes, no.
Yeah. Anyway, there are the statues of the Beatles right before you go down into the.
Rather
There are a lot of bars
stylized.
and restaurants.
It's quite,
and
it's quite
it's
quite
it's
the
an
place.
exciting entertainment area.
I took a group of travel agents one year to that place, and was not so good. We had a few people that weren't too happy that I took them there.
Oh my goodness!
Oh,
I
but-
only there's a little tourist train you can get on at the train station. So I've just gone through it on this little. It's kind of like your trolley.
What?
you know? I just took
What a
like
historic
trolley ride.
spot, though. Is it a shrine? I mean, do people come
Yeah,
here?
there's these statues right there.
But
I
do
think
do
anybody
people lay
knows.
flowers and light candles?
I think it's fairly close to the harbor. My mother told me she was in the German Air Force, and she was stationed near Hamburg in Stade. And the soldiers or the Marines would come off the boats and have fun
It's a
downtown during their vacation.
Hello Sailor.
So the boys from Liverpool, too.
If you read that book about, who is it by, Malcolm somebody, about if you do something 10,000 times, you get really, really good at it. That's where the Beatles got really, really good because they played there.
Night after
yes,
night.
Night after night, several shows a night. And they, right after the Hamburg experience is when they became famous. So this is a boat trip we took in Hamburg.
Yeah.
The river in Hamburg is the,
And they took us behind the scenes too, where the loading decks are.
it was
You know,
great,
the
great
things
tour,
that-
yeah.
It really was nice, very interesting.
Okay, there's our firemen with the other.
With German firemen?
With German firemen.
That was
yeah.
in Schwerin, I think. Remember they came with the
that day.
Feuerwehr, the car,
Oh, the fire truck.
fire truck. They came from Ludwigslust to Hamburg, or Schwerin, I'm sorry, with the fire truck, the local fire truck, to pick him up.
Because it was time for his shift, right?
I guess
Or-
so. They got along really well.
Yeah. Okay.
This was at Regina's house, I read.
Okay, this is where they lived before they had had an apartment on the edge of town. But what's very, very typical in Germany, since the houses are very, attached, is that the Germans have gardens on the edge of town. And they will go out and, well, kind of like your wife does. She has a garden.
In Russia, that would be a dacha. What is it in Germany?
It's not. There's no house or anything there. There
Right.
might be a shed. It's a Schrebergarten, right?
Schrebergarten.
What does that word mean?
He is the guy who developed them. He's the one who first kind of.
I see.
And a lot of people do have their little huts. Some they
Keep
sleep
their
in
equipment
there,
in.
and often have
Lawn
stoves
chair.
and and lawn chairs and cook
But
in
yeah,
there.
when
Your
I stayed,
reference here in Muscatine, let's just make a pitch for our community gardens
There you go.
in cooperation with the city and the Extension Service. And my wife is an avid gardener on Solomon Avenue, where there's a little shed for tools and water is provided. And
Well, when I saw that picture yesterday, I thought it was Regina's garden, the courtyard they have in the back of
Yeah.
their house.
no,
And
this
that's
is the
what
one
I
they have
thought.
on the edge of town.
Okay, I didn't know that one, but it looked like it's all brick. The floors are the pathways are brick, but they've put so many plants in there. I sort of feel like you're in
they're-
Italy.
They have a little courtyard in the back of their
beautiful.
house. It is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Peter is a.
Oh,
There you
these
go.
are the chocolate, whatever they call them. I forgot the name. I don't know. We
Yeah,
don't.
there's
we
a
don't
new
have
name for it.
Yeah, we don't
in
have a,
Ludwigslust?
yeah.
No, it's in a town
Yeah, a little
close
town.
by. But these are very famous.
Candy factory or?
It's kind of like a marshmallow center with chocolate over it.
Uh-huh.
We have cookies that might be similar. But you can't get them in the United States because they don't travel well. But they taught us how to make them, and we're all making really bad versions of them. That's Larry's son. What was his name? Peter? I'm not sure. Larry's taking a picture of him.
And the fireman's not even trying.
Is that Mary there?
That's Mary.
Yeah, so we.
Oh, and then of course our butcher shops. And this was, I think, the factory that they took us to, wasn't it?
Oh, that's right. We went to the pork producers. Yeah, we had lunch there. It was
Yes.
wonderful. But a normal German butcher, I mean, they go to the butcher every day and they go to the bakery every day, and things are really fresh. They go to their garden every day and get fresh vegetables. The food is very familiar to us. I mean, you can look, that doesn't look like strange food.
Not to Iowans.
Very basic. Oh, it's sausage and pork and whatever. No, the food is very comfortable and grandma food. It's not strange food. Oh, there's,
And our bakeries.
yeah, bakery.
I forgot how many different sorts of bread and rolls we have, in the hundreds.
And they all
It's-
are
it's
wonderful.
wonderful bread.
And this is not
Okay.
something to eat,
What is
it appears. Something, some manufacturing of
We went to a couple of factories.
tubes or rods or something.
I remember that.
Well, we went to one place where they made awnings.
I think this
Oh,
is
this is it, I
the
think.
awnings, I think.
I'd have to look at the captions. There they are making the. I think that was the awning place.
Oh, and is this the special education, the
No, this is
workshop,
the
or-
factory.
No, this was a factory.
Oh, I see.
This is just a typical street, I
Um,
think.
You described this as the hospital, and maybe it's the one the
Okay,
Lutherans
yeah.
supported, I'm not sure.
That's the Lutheran Hospital. Okay.
So back in Mecklenburg?
Back in Ludwigslust.
Ludwig, oh my.
This list, yeah.
But the pictures, you have this brick building. It's hard to remember which brick building is which. But I'm glad I captioned them. You have to do that right away. Oh, and they took us to a house that they were just building from scratch, which my family was a real estate family, and it was really fascinating to me.
And I gather the standard of energy efficiency